to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Are UFOs real? That's the question that I've been dealing with while I've been researching this project. I'd say for the last 6 months, really, I've been doing some reading in it. Our program is entitled, Are UFOs Real? Exploring the Cosmos, Searching for Answers. And I would love to tell you that now this program is going to give you all the answers, but it's not. I'm going to start, first of all, with my cell phone. This morning, the day of taping for this program, I looked over the news just to see what was happening in the world. And the first news item that popped up was this one. Aliens are interacting with humans, according to a retired Army colonel. It's on News Nation, and it says, retired Army Colonel Carl Neal claims non-human intelligence not only exists and has been to Earth, but has been actively interacting with humanity. I'll let you look up that story and read the rest of it. I've read so much of this kind of thing, I really am going to give myself a rest. Instead, let's look at a cartoon that deals with this whole question of UFOs and all the rest. You see this disc-like object that is plowed into the ground, and the humans are standing around. One's a cop, one's a farmer, even the cow's looking at it. It says, upon closer inspection, it turns out that it's not a UFO after all. It's a Hummer hubcap. Welcome to one of the most unusual programs that our team has ever put together for you. Our discussion will include age-old questions concerning life as we know it and as we may not know it. Are there really little green Martians? Is there really a man in the moon? Remember, as children, we were sort of given those little facts. We know now there aren't green Martians, and we know now, because we've been there, there's no man on the moon except for our people. We're going to learn a new vocabulary together today, or at least it was a new vocabulary for me. We're going to meet an absolutely brilliant and highly controversial scientist, and we're going to think beyond our comfort zones. Strap up. We're going to blast off on this adventure together. First question is the obvious question. Have you ever seen an unidentified flying object? Do you believe they exist, whether you've seen one or not? I was surprised. About 4 in 10 Americans believe that UFOs, or unidentified flying objects, do exist. I'll confess I'm one of those. There are a lot of things up there flying around that we don't know exactly what they are. According to a survey conducted in 2021, 39% of the respondents from the United States believe that aliens and or UFOs exist. Aliens, extraterrestrials. Men are more likely to believe in UFOs compared to women. That surprised me. There have been a number of studies since 2021, and every one of them have shown an increase in the number of people who believe either in aliens or in UFOs or both. I think that's understandable because we've always, as a human race, been curious about the sky. What's up there? What secrets does it hold? Today, with the special effects capabilities that our filmmakers have to make things seem real, and of course there's the impact of artificial intelligence that can do even more toward making something seem real, plus our own government's admission that there are things that are up there that they can't figure out. It's no small wonder that more of us believe. Even very early in recorded history, mankind was trying to figure out the earth, the sky, and the great space beyond. Our ancestors used art to express their understanding of what they were questioning and what they thought they were seeing. We're going to start with prehistoric, ancient art. Two forms of it we have that we can look back to and sort of get an inkling of what our long ago ancestors were seeing. Ancient cave paintings is one, and ancient petroglyphs is the other. Cave paintings are obvious paintings found in caves and in shelters. We've got them dating back to the upper Paleolithic era. That's roughly 40,000 to 14,000 years ago. And the total number of known decorated sites worldwide is around 400, so we've got a lot of them. The petroglyph, that would be any image that's on a rock or hard surface, and it's been scoured, it's been scratched, it's been engraved, it's been chiseled, it's been carved, or in some way it's been altered to show something, to give an image. The oldest ones of those date back to 700,000 BC. These are the Sago Canyon cave paintings. These, we are told by those who examine them, appear to be evidence of star people or ancient astronauts. It sits in what's called Sago Canyon in our state of Utah. These drawings were made by the Anasi and the Fremont Native Americans, and they're at least 8,000 years old. This is a close-up of them, and it shows you that they're rather human figures, human-like. They've got exaggerated big or missing eyes. They've got large heads and disproportionate body sizes. These ancient astronaut paintings have been recorded in Sumeria, in China, in North and South America, in myths. Oral history traditions around the world all include these strange star people. Petroglyphs around 10,000 BC were first described in 1909 by Walter Lang. Some show humanoid figures dressed in protective suits and holding strange objects. Here's a close-up that shows a little better those figures. This site in Italy contains one of the largest collections of petroglyphs, prehistoric petroglyphs, in the whole world. In this site, there are more than 250,000 images. As the ages passed, man's art became more detailed and showed curious images of otherworldly encounters. This will move us to the next section of art, and that's medieval and Renaissance art. This is the medievalists and the Renaissance people's interpretations of UFOs. Artists during both these periods frequently incorporated flying objects or celestial beings in their religious and mythological compositions. In their art, UFOs were perceived in a very spiritual or perhaps a supernatural context. This art often featured flying objects or beings that bear a noticeable resemblance to photos taken of modern UFO sightings. These early representations were deeply intertwined with the prevailing religious and philosophical beliefs of their time, and they blended the realms of the divine and the extraterrestrial, creating a very interesting fusion of art and mysticism. This is a painting. It's from 1430. It's entitled The Illumination of Fortuna by Jacques Legrand. Ufologists, these are the scientists who follow UFO things. Ufologists believe that the orb here, you can see it in the upper center of the painting, and the rays that are in the sky around it are either smaller UFOs or they're coming from the main orb itself, these rays. They believe that the men on the upper right side are in awe of what they're seeing. The men seem surprised, watching something appear before them for the first time. Art historians disagree. And here's a detail that gives you a better picture of the orb and also these little flashes of light that are around it. And the two men who are very surprised at what they're seeing, and everybody else is generally oblivious. This is neither the first nor the last time that historians of all kinds are going to disagree on their interpretation of what they're seeing. This debate over UFOs continues, and today is widely represented in an art form that I call pop culture. Here's a definition for you for that. Popular culture, pop culture, refers in general to the traditions and material culture of a particular society. In the modern Western world, pop culture refers to cultural products including music, art, literature, fashion, dance, film, cyberculture, sort of a new one in here, and that's social media, television, and radio that are consumed by the majority of a society's population. Today, we are inundated. We have books, we have television programs, we have movies, documentaries, news stories, social media posts, like the one I read at the beginning, with information and misinformation about the possibility of the existence of life elsewhere in the universe, about the possibility of aliens having visited Earth previously, and about what our own officials do or do not know about aliens and UFOs. Pop culture's representation of UFOs is interesting. They're more prevalent in pop culture and the arts, particularly literature, film, music, and the visual arts, than ever before in our history. David Bowie's Starman and Pink Floyd Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun vividly describe encounters with extraterrestrial beings and the mysteries of the cosmos. It's Steven Spielberg, though, whom I think has excelled beyond all of them. He created two of the most iconic representations of UFOs and extraterrestrial beings to date. His have become a significant part of the fabric of UFO and alien popular culture. The first was a film, one of his earliest, that he released in 1977. It was entitled Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He wrote it and he directed it. Many consider this to be the best of all of Spielberg's film, and he has made many wonderful ones. This film gave us a connection between UFO conspiracy theories and a possible explanation for their existence. The encounter of the third kind was both thrilling and mysterious, but it was never terrifying. That's quite a departure from portraying beings or visitors from outer space as vicious, horrible things determined to destroy us, eat us, take over our planet. Film critic Roger Ebert had this to say about Close Encounters, quote, "A great film is one that can take even the most jaded of moviegoers and fill them with a sense of anticipation, wonder, and sheer exhilaration. Cynicism falls away as they witness all the different creative aspects that go into making a film come together to show them sights they have never seen and tell them stories that are able to surprise while still resonating on the deepest of emotional levels. It deals with the concept of mankind's first encounter with visiting beings from another world, but it really isn't about them per se. Until the very end, the creatures themselves are kept off screen, and their presence is only represented sporadically via mysterious lights and fleeting glimpses of their spacecraft." If you've never seen Close Encounters of a Third Time, get it. Go look at it. It's a fascinating look at a 1970s, 50 years ago, interpretation of what a UFO might look like, why it might be here, and what the little beings might be like. 5 years after this one, he's back. Spielberg has a second fabulous film. In this one, he again merges conspiracy theories with reported sightings to create a believable, thoroughly plausible explanation of extraterrestrial visitation. By using children and a childlike alien as the principal characters, Spielberg once again takes the terror away and inserts awe and wonder. That film, E.T., the Extraterrestrial, released in 1982. He produced and directed this one. He did not write it. Ebert has this to say about that film. It works as science fiction. It's sometimes as scary as a monster movie. And at the end, when the lights go up, there's not a dry eye in the house. Artists of all kind, visual, fine, performing, cinematic, writers, all of them have attempted to capture images of UFOs through their work for millennia. Because of that work, there have been countless debates about what their representations really show. Basically, to me, it boils down to three key questions. One, are these representations the artist's attempt to accurately represent what he has personally seen? Two, are they the artist's recreation of what others have seen and described to him? Or three, are they strictly a product of the artist's imagination? For the remainder of the program today, I'm going to use popular culture cartoons to illustrate how UFOs and aliens are depicted. I've selected for most of them the work of Gary Larson, one of my favorite single strip comic writers. He created The Far Side, which I thought was brilliant. The Far Side was internationally syndicated and extremely popular. The first one for this program comes from 1991. Larson drew it to show how early UFOs might have looked. It's a hilarious picture. His interpretation of the earliest, most primitive UFOs landing among the cavemen. Even the prehistoric mammoth is looking at this thing, wondering what on earth is going on. Published in January 16th, 1991. Where exactly is home? I think that's one of the things that I want to impress on you. It was impressed on me as I was doing this study. I think of home as a street address, in a town, in a state, in a nation, on Earth. But I've discovered that home is a lot bigger than that. And Larson apparently thought that when the aliens would come take a look at us, they'd discover some interesting things too. This one shows a spaceship with the little aliens with their bugged eyes kind of looking out, and they're stuck on top of the torch of the Statue of Liberty. And the character says, "Well, Zoran, is this close enough for you?" For the next few minutes, I'm going to help all of us comprehend the enormous universe that we call home. First, let's look at exactly where we live, Earth. Earth is estimated to be 4.54 billion years old, give or take. It's the fifth largest planet in our solar system and the only planet that has a single satellite or moon. It's the only planet in our solar system whose English name isn't from Greek or Roman mythology. The word Earth comes from a Germanic word that translates as ground. It takes about 8 minutes for light to come from the sun and reach us here on Earth. Water covers about 70% of our Earth's surface, but only 3.5% of our Earth's water is fresh water. Salt water makes up 96.5% of the Earth's water. Okay, planet Earth, home. But where is Earth's home? It's the solar system. Let's take a look and see how Earth fits into it. The solar system is basically our sun and everything that rotates around it, orbits around it. This is a great graphic. It shows the sun, and then you can see the planets in the order that they come away from the sun. You see here clearly Mercury, Venus, there's our Earth with our moon, then Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. The solar system consists of the sun and today 8 official planets, 3 dwarf planets, more than 130 satellites of the planets, a large number of small bodies, comets and asteroids, and the interplanetary medium. I love that. That's just the space between everything. The solar system is mostly made up of this empty space between everything. The planets are very small compared to that empty space. We have an inner solar system, that's the Sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. The main asteroid belt lies between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter, and the planets of the outer solar system are Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Pluto is now being classified as a dwarf planet, although there's plenty of disagreement on that too. Numerous small bodies inhabit the solar system, the moons of the planets, of course. There are a large number of these small rocky bodies, the asteroids, that orbit the sun, mostly between Mars and Jupiter, but they can be found elsewhere. Comets, little bodies of ice, which come and go from the inner parts of the solar system in highly elongated orbits and at random orientations. And there are many comets beyond Neptune. They're in what's called the Kuiper Belt. Our home is not only the Earth then, but it's also our solar system. But where is our solar system? The solar system is a very small part of a magnificent galaxy we call the Milky Way galaxy. Here's a representation of it, and if you look very carefully, you see a big red arrow that points to a little tiny Earth. That's us, and everything else is part of the Milky Way galaxy. A lot of space out there, guys. The Milky Way galaxy is believed to be about 100,000 light years across, and its closest neighboring galaxy, Andromeda, is roughly 220,000 light years across. A light year is the distance that light can travel in a year, and it's estimated that that's about 6 trillion miles. Get a sense of how big it is out there? Our solar system orbits around the center of the Milky Way. It takes our solar system about 230 million light years to complete that orbit. Our solar system and all other matter within the Milky Way galaxy are believed to revolve around something they call a supermassive black hole. What is a black hole? Here's a working definition. A black hole is a place in space where gravity is so strong that even light cannot escape it. This gravity is so strong because matter has been squeezed and squeezed and squeezed in a tiny, tiny space. This happens when a star dies. Because no light can get out, we can't see black holes. They're invisible. Just 2 weeks ago, in a laboratory experiment, some scientists reported that they had been able to compress the gravity. Here's a picture of the Milky Way galaxy. It's a spiral. It's a beautiful thing. The great telescopes, the 2 big ones that we have up now, have given us magnificent pictures of it. It is not flat, though. It's warped. It wobbles as it moves across the universe, kind of like a spinning top. Most estimates suggest that there are at least 100 billion stars in our Milky Way galaxy alone. Could be up to 400 billion. The stars seen from Earth when we look up into the sky are only a very tiny fraction of what the Milky Way galaxy contains. Okay, our home is the Earth, the solar system, and the Milky Way galaxy. But where does the Milky Way galaxy exist? The universe, that great, enormous, unexplored space that our scientists are doing everything they possibly can with enough funding to see what's out there. The universe is probably flat. There were arguments about that. Einstein predicted that it was possible that it's actually flat, and most of the recent research indicates he was probably right. It's believed to be 13.7 billion years old, give or take 100 million years or so. At the same time, it's both expanding and accelerating. It's getting bigger and it's going faster. 96% of the universe is made up of substances, dark matter, dark energy, that cannot be seen. 4%, only 4%, is made up of visible things, the stars, the planets, and the galaxies. Man's understanding of the universe has come a long way, and we're still learning now more rapidly than at any other time in human history. Ancient civilizations created myths to explain it. Their myths were decidedly human in concerns, in fears, in hopes. Several centuries ago, people began applying mathematics, writing, and newly established principles to discover the nature of the universe. People began systematically investigating the nature of things. These investigators were first known as the natural philosophers. That term changed to scientist as these researchers developed more tools to use to explore the universe and try to explain it. Here's the timeline. In the last 100 years, the last century, man has observed galaxies beyond the Milky Way galaxy for the very first time. In the last 70 or so years, man has begun sending space probes, spacecraft, and then humans into outer space. Man has walked on the moon, sent rovers to the surface of Mars, constructed a permanent manned space station to orbit the Earth, and launched incredibly large space telescopes that are sending pictures back of parts of the cosmos never before seen. In only the last 25 years, man has discovered thousands of planets around other stars, detected gravitational waves for the very first time, and produced the first image of that invisible black hole. Whew. There's a lot about the Earth, the solar system, the Milky Way galaxy, and the universe we don't know yet. We've really only just begun to learn a mere fraction of what there is to know. We must wonder exactly what we may learn and how we will react to such knowledge. Larson thought that would be a two-way street. This cartoon, which he published, we don't know exactly when, but probably between the 1970s and the 1990s. It shows the aliens with the door dropped down from their big spaceship, and there are three of them huddled at the top, and one has obviously taken a misstep, and he's fallen down the stairs flat on his face. And the cartoon says, wonderful, just wonderful. So much of instilling them with a sense of awe. Now that we have some sense of where home is, I want to move us a little bit away from science fiction and more toward reality. So many people believe in UFOs and the concept of extraterrestrials, and pop culture is a major reason why. Here's another Larson cartoon. This one he published in July of 1983, and it shows a typical tourist picture. The spaceship is landed, and the alien is standing with his arm around the shoulders of a guy who's in shorts, and he's a tourist, and his wife is attempting to take a picture. And the wife says, "Yes, yes, already, Warren, there is film in the camera." This book, The War of the Worlds, published in 1898 by H.G. Wells. I wonder how many of you have heard of this book, maybe read it, I hope. I wonder how many of you have heard of the upheaval that an adaptation of this book caused. The moment was the perfect storm where pop culture, a new use for a relatively new form of mass communications, and a growing sense of unease and panic because of the condition of the world at the time, all converged one night in less than an hour. October 30th, Halloween Eve, 1938, Orson Welles and his Mercury Theater on the Air performed a radio adaptation of H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds. Orson Welles and his teams converted this science fiction novel into a series of urgent news bulletins that announced an invasion of New Jersey by Martians. The radio broadcast caused nationwide panic coast to coast. Remember, I told you, it's a time, think of the dates of World War I and World War II. The world is unsettled. We have a new mass communication medium being employed. It's the radio. And there's just this sense of unease among the people. Wells and his collaborators who created this program, they never expected the broadcast to be believed. In fact, they thought the story was so silly and totally improbable that nobody would believe it. They were wrong. This is a newspaper account the next day. And you see Orson Welles there, pardon me, he's being photographed while he's actually doing the radio broadcast. And the title of the article is "Radio Listeners in Panic Taking War Drama as Fact. Many flee homes to escape gas raid from Mars. Phone calls swamp police at broadcast of Wells' fantasy." And then just a little bit, it says, "A wave of mass hysteria seized thousands of radio listeners throughout the nation between 8:15 and 9:30 o'clock last night, when a broadcast of a dramatization of H.G. Wells' fantasy, The War of the Worlds, led thousands to believe that an interplanetary conflict had started with invading Martians." Wells' original book is set in England. It has the Martians attacking England. So Wells decided, Orson Welles, decided he would make it an American deal. Mercury Theater on the Air, Orson Welles' baby, had only been on CBS for 17 weeks. It was a low-budget program. It had no sponsor. The series was originally designed to present fresh adaptations to classical literature. And with Halloween approaching, Wells wanted to do something kind of different, and so he proposed doing a radio broadcast that seemed to be an actual crisis of some kind. It was his producer, John Houseman, who would later become a household word in movies. John Houseman suggested the Wells novel, War of the Worlds. But you know, it wasn't but 9 years after that broadcast that UFOs became a reality in America. June 1947, businessman and civilian pilot Kenneth Arnold reported seeing 9 objects moving at high speeds through the skies over Washington's Mount Rainier. He described them as flying in a Y formation at speeds up to 1,700 miles per hour. This is the first recorded UFO sighting. During the same summer, a mysterious crash and recovered debris from New Mexico accelerated public interest and public concern. 1 year later, in response to the increased number of UFO sightings that were being reported, Operation Sign was begun. It was established by the United States Air Force to investigate. Then from 1952 to 1969, Project Blue Book was established, and it became the longest to date U.S. government official inquiry into UFO sightings. The project compiled reports of more than 12,000 sightings or related events from 52 to the dismantling of it in 69. Most of the sightings were deemed natural or man-made, but not all. This is a picture of a fellow. He's dealing with some debris. This happens at about the same time that our fellow does his first UFO sighting. It's late June, early July 1947. A rancher discovered debris on his property about 75 miles north of Roswell, New Mexico. Debris from the site was taken to authorities. The Roswell Army Airfield put out a press release the next day announcing that they had recovered a flying disc. Quickly, U.S. Army officials issued a new release saying that the object was just a weather balloon. 75 years later, these events are still causing controversy. So serious was the public's increasing concern for getting at the truth about UFOs and aliens that the U.S. government has been forced to go to unprecedented lengths to disclose information. Much of this was spurred by public comments and disclosures made by astronauts, scientists, and military personnel. Their comments have made the entire question one of relevance and concern. July 20th, 2022, the Department of Defense created an office to track unidentified objects in space, air, underwater, or those that appear to travel between those domains. UFOs began reviving newfound levels of government scrutiny not seen in decades. Congress began holding multiple hearings and classified briefings, and many more lawmakers began expressing concern that America's airspace may not be as safe as previously thought due to the many sightings of UFOs that pilots and other armed forces personnel were reporting. These are two logos of what the government finally had to do. They formed the office, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or ARROW. It was established within the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security. Sean Kirkpatrick, who previously had served as the chief scientist at the Defense Intelligence Agency's Missile and Space Intelligence Center, was selected to lead ARROW. Look carefully at this coming statement from a report released in March 2024 by the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office concerning UFOs and government. Less than 2 years after its establishment, ARROW has declared its findings. Quote, "The report on the historical record of U.S. government involvement with unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAP, written by the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, denies all claims regarding the U.S. government and UFOs, stating that they are the result of," listen carefully, "decreased public trust in the government, the prevalence of UFOs in popular culture, and the unnecessary government secrecy." And just like that, the public is to be satisfied that all is being handled and all is well. Do you still have questions? I do. Gary Lawson had to have been wondering back in 1982, what would happen if aliens did land on Earth? Would they be superior to us? He chose to make his aliens much more like us. Here we see in the cartoon published in July of 1982, the saucer has landed. Coming over the hill are people in wonder pointing at this strange object. Outside of the saucer are two of his familiar alien creatures. One of them is staring through the glass into the flying saucer. The other one has his hand on his hips and he says, "Well, here they come. You lock the keys inside, you do the talking." Most of the time, Larson creates his alien creature as kind of a blob, sort of roundish, and it has almost like a snail, little eyeballs on the end of stalks out of the top of his head. This cartoon I thought was interesting because to make a point, he changes the form of his alien. This time his alien, instead of being the familiar blob with the bug eyes, he has him appear to be an arm with feet. And in the cartoon you see that there are other flying saucers hovering above, but one has landed and the stairs have come down and three of these little creatures have landed and they're meeting the farmer. And this is the script. Inadvertently, Roy dooms the entire earth to annihilation when, in an attempt to be friendly, he seizes their leader by the head and shakes vigorously. The question to answer now is, who is the most interesting scientist shaking up science these days? Simple. His name is Dr. Abraham A.V. Loeb. In a very crowded field of outstanding scientists working today, one is capturing both the public's attention and the science community's attention more than any other single one. Abraham A.V. Loeb has published two very popular science books that offer a perspective on the questions of, are there UFOs and aliens elsewhere in the universe, and have they visited us? Here they are, and I recommend them both to you. Loeb was born in February of 1962. He's a young man. He's an Israeli-American theoretical physicist. He specializes in astrophysics and in cosmology. Look at these credentials. The Frank B. Baird Jr. Professor of Science at Harvard, Director of Institute for Theory and Computation at the Center for Astrophysics since 2007, chaired the Department of Astronomy again at Harvard, 2011 to 2020. He founded the Black Hole Initiative in 2016. He's a fellow of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, the American Physical Society, and the International Academy of Astronautics. He was appointed the Science Theory Director for the Breakthrough Initiative section of the Breakthrough Prize Foundation. Understand that this is just a partial listing of Loeb's credentials. He has more. To try and understand him and the very pioneering work that he's doing, we're going to have to come to a mutual understanding of just a few terms. Now, hang with me. First one is theoretical physics. This is the area of physics that's his specialty. It's a branch of physics that employs mathematical models and abstractions of physical objects and systems to rationalize, explain, and predict natural phenomena. This is different from experimental physics, which uses experimental tools to probe the same phenomena. Science advances through the interplay of these two forms. Second term, astrophysics, also his specialty. It's a science that employs the method and principles of physics and chemistry in the study of astronomical objects and phenomena. Then the word cosmology. Cosmology is simply the science of the origin and development of the universe. And then the term interstellar, you've heard it previously, but I want to remind you, this is anything that happens, anything that exists or occurs in that great empty space between the stars. Here is two books pointed out to you a little bit earlier. These are the two that are considered popular science books. They are written for the general public. The first one was published in 2021. It's Extraterrestrial, the First Sign of Intelligent Life Beyond Earth. And then the second one was published 2 years later, Interstellar, The Search for Extraterrestrial Life and Our Future in the Stars. These two books are the primary resources that I used for this program today, although I did a lot of other research. I recommend them both to you, and I have a slight preference for the first one, Extraterrestrial, the First Sign of Intelligent Life Beyond Earth. I frankly found it to be a more compelling read than the second one. Much of the second one deals with the difficulty in securing funds to support extraterrestrial research and interstellar space travel. That one was too much in the bureaucratic weeds for me. Although it often feels like a proposal requesting more funds for Loeb's specific areas of interest, it's still an excellent read. Both books are beautifully written, with very difficult concepts explained in language that nearly all of us can follow and understand. Again, I recommend them both. Specifically important for this program, how did Loeb become a household name among UFO and alien believers? And why have his unconventional theories created such controversy? Let's look at Loeb. He grew up in Bet Hanan, Israel, on the family farm located about 15 miles south of Tel Aviv. Their farm, which was privately owned by them, was part of an agricultural village of other privately owned farms that generally had greenhouses and orchards. Loeb's family primarily grew pecans in orchards there. This is a great picture of him at age 7 at the family's farm in Israel. He loved growing up there. His mother was brilliant. His father was brilliant. His mother instilled in him a love for literature and philosophy. His father showed him the value of hard work and questioning and finding out answers. His paternal grandparents had escaped Nazi Germany and resettled in Israel. His maternal grandparents had escaped Bulgaria and did the same. His father, David Loeb, and his mother, Sarah, met in Israel and married and had 3 children. This is a kind of a startling picture to us. It's the Israeli military. At age 18, Loeb entered the required military service in Israel, required of all 18-year-olds, male and female. He, though, was selected for Talpiot. It was a new program at the time, and they admitted only 24 people into it. He was one. Talpiot required defense-related research plus intense military training. He loved philosophy because of the questions that it asked, but he loved science more because of the answers it could provide. This is a definition of Talpiot. It's an elite Israeli defense force. It's a training program for recruits who have demonstrated outstanding academic ability in the sciences and leadership potential. Graduates pursue double higher education while they serve in the Army, and they use their expertise to further IDF research and development in technological leadership positions. Loeb used his time in Talpiot to complete his PhD dissertation at age 24. His focus for the dissertation was plasma physics, and plasma makes up 99% of the visible universe. He studied astrophysics then at Princeton, He happened to meet a very interesting lady on a blind date. They married 2 years later, and they remain happily married. Loeb's career and reputation grew because he became a prolific writer. He authored and co-authored lots of journal articles, papers, textbooks, as his research in astrophysics grew. In September of 2017, though, something new enters our solar system, and therefore the scientific conversation. Here's an artist's rendering based on the data of what the telescopes provided from observatories all around the world that were watching this thing. This is what they indicated the object most likely looked like. Just like a very large stick. It's rough. It's long. September 6, 2017, a previously unknown object intercepted our solar system's orbital plane from the direction of Vega, some 25 light years away in the constellation of Lyra. The object was immediately interesting due to its nearly perpendicular trajectory into our solar system. For the next 11 nights, astronomers all around the world collected data to help them characterize this object. On October 19, 2017, astronomer Robert Work at the Halakaya Observatory in Hawaii found the object in Pan-STARRS images that showed it as a point of light speeding across the night sky. After reaching its closest point to the sun, the object began exiting the solar system at a very high speed relative to our sun, or about 58,000 miles per second, more than enough to ensure that it would escape the sun's gravity. Astronomers were also interested in how it reflected sunlight. First question, what shall it be called? Turns out there is an international astronomical union whose official duty is to officially name these objects that are found in the sky. They named it 1L/2017U1. It quickly got a nickname, and the nickname is Oumuamua. It was given to it by the Pan-STARRS team in Hawaii who first located it. And it's a Hawaiian term that translates a messenger from afar arriving first. At first, they all figured this thing had to be an asteroid. But the more data that came in, they realized that the object was accelerating, a behavior that's associated with comets. So the scientists then decided it must be a comet. Paul Chodras at the Center of Near-Earth Object Studies for NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab said this, "What a fascinating discovery this is. It's a strange visitor from a faraway star system shaped like nothing we've ever seen in our own solar system neighborhood." Loeb became fascinated with Oumuamua, and he came up with a series of things that makes this object different. And these he does in his book. He says, prior to Oumuamua's discovery, no confirmed interstellar object had ever before been observed in our own solar system, so it's first. Then, Oumuamua's shape was extreme, at least 5 to 10 times longer than it was wide. And Oumuamua is a rarity. If it were elongated, we'd never seen any naturally occurring space object that size and that elongated. If it were flat, we had never seen any naturally occurring space object that size and that flat. All asteroids previously seen in the solar system had length to width ratios of at most 3. Oumuamua's was between 5 and 10. And finally, Oumuamua is strangely luminous, approaching levels of brightness similar to a very shiny metal. It is at least 10 times more reflective than typical solar system asteroids or comets. He looked at it from a different perspective. He said, think of these important differences. When Oumuamua sped past on the way around the sun, its trajectory deviated from what was expected based on the sun's gravitational force alone. In other words, it changed course. Why did it change course? And how did it change course? Also, most in the scientific community decided that Oumuamua was a comet. Two explanations for the deviation in course were outgassing, which is indicated as the tail of the comet is disintegrating, the ice is melting. There was no visible evidence from telescopes worldwide either of outgassing or of Oumuamua's disintegration. Loeb looked back to two outstanding scientists and a theory they had considered over 4 centuries ago. He looked at Kepler and Galileo. Reviewing what these two fellows had considered so long ago, Loeb came up with his own theory as to how Oumuamua's course had changed. He said, Oumuamua's deviation could be caused by sunlight bouncing off its surface like wind off a thin sail. The idea of a solar sail was centuries old. This sail would be a manufactured object that would be propelled by the pressure sunlight exerted on it. In 1610, Johann Kepler wrote to Galileo about, quote, ships adapted to the heavenly breezes, close quote. Not until the 1970s did building such an object become feasible. This is an artist's rendering of a light sail that's approaching an interstellar object in space. In other words, this is theoretical physics of how this might look. Loeb has done significant research on the idea of a sail that's propelled by radiation from the sun. His work has energized portions of the scientific community and turned off others. Either way, it is theoretical physics at its finest. What will these newly conceived probes find? Even with the limitations of old technology that we have with Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 and the Pioneers and so forth, we found a lot. Larson depicts 2 aliens greeting each other. And the statement is, hey, Zoran, what's happening? Give me 6. They have 6 fingers, not 5. Loeb didn't stop there. He takes further steps that move him out of the mainstream of science and into his own lane. Larson shows us in this one again the sort of the human side of the aliens. They've obviously crashed. Their poor little spacecraft has crushed. They're sitting in front of it, and one says to the other, I can't believe it. One lousy little bee gets inside and you just freak out. Loeb says in Extraterrestrial, nature has shown no ability to produce anything like the size and composition of what our assumptions suggested. So something or someone must have built a light sail. Oumuamua must have been designed, built, and launched by extraterrestrial intelligence. 1/4 of all stars host a planet the size and surface temperature of the Earth. It would be arrogant to think we are alone. Loeb's theory that Oumuamua was artificial technology was met with hearty disapproval. The official statement from the Oumuamua team of the International Space Science Institute published in Nature Astronomy, quote, "We find no compelling evidence to favor an alien explanation for Oumuamua." Even though their conclusion is unambiguous, that team also included a list of open questions that they stated could only be addressed after specific advanced telescopes became operational. Loeb came back. He said, quote, "If the light sail hypothesis is true, there are two possible explanations for Oumuamua. One is that Oumuamua's makers intentionally targeted our inner solar system. The other is that Oumuamua is simply a piece of space junk. Either way, the hypothesis is very controversial about members of both the scientific community and the general public. The idea, though, of space junk isn't novel or unheard of. We routinely see reports about pieces of things that we've sent into space that have fallen back to Earth. Satellite pieces, jettisoned, rocket engines, things just traveling through like asteroids and comets will hit us. Or things seen by astronauts, or just regular folks looking in their backyards." Loeb contends, quote, "It is probable that the members of any extraterrestrial civilization will be as awed to encounter us as we are to encounter them. It is quite possible that they will worry about their reception by our species as much as we may worry over their intentions." And again, Larson, back in 1983, is already thinking about this. You have the poor little aliens, they've landed, they've stepped out. One of them has an English translation book in his little hand. And the other one says, "Take me to your stove, you idiot. Give me that book." What's next? Time will tell. Loeb is not finished. Larson deviated from his interactions with the aliens and humans, earthlings, from being sort of calm and funny. Sometimes he went in another direction, like with this one. He has two aliens, one in a baseball cap, and they have this big jar, and in the jar are two astronauts. And it reads, "Pretty cool, Dewey. Hey, shake the jar and see if they'll fight." Loeb is not ready to stop shaking up the scientific community with his theories, and he's attracting significant money for his research. Most recently, in 2023, he took his eyes away from the cosmos and began searching for extraterrestrial evidence beneath the surface of the Earth's ocean. In January of 2014, the first identified interstellar meteor crashed in fragments into the Pacific Ocean and the waters off Papua New Guinea. And an astrophysicist at Harvard University, Dr. Avi Loeb, believed he may find proof of extraterrestrials not by studying just the night sky, but by combing the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. In July 2021, he founded the Galileo Project for the systematic scientific search for evidence of extraterrestrial technological artifacts. He's not looking for aliens, he's looking for their space junk. This is the emblem or the logo for the Galileo Project. Very well funded and very ambitious. This shows Loeb and his team working with a palette on which they've attached a series of magnets. And it's on the cover of the article in the Harvard Crimson about Loeb and his team. It was published in 23, and the title of it was Harvard astronomer Avi Loeb Team Finds Spherules of Likely Extrasolar Composition. June of 2023, His team embarked on a $1.5 million expedition to New Guinea with the mission of recovering fragments from that meteor that had crashed in 2014. The meteor, known as ML1, was especially curious to Loeb because it had been confirmed as interstellar. During the 2-week excursion, the team scoured over 100 miles of ocean bed, and they recovered 50 tiny magnetic spheres composed of a metallic substance they announced was not matching any existing alloys in our solar system. Here's a picture of one of the little spherules. Remember that earlier picture where I showed you he and his team are working over this pallet with all the magnets? They just dragged it across the ocean floor in a confined area that was appropriate to where the meteor had crashed. And this is the size of the things they were finding. A better look at it will come in just a minute. In very simple terms, Loeb and his teams found what they believe are magnetic fragments from that meteor. Here's a picture of Loeb looking at the fragments in a case with one of his compatriots, and on the right is an enlargement of one of the spheres. You see they're metallic and they have different colors. They're very beautiful. Loeb told the Boston Public Radio, quote, "These findings raise the possibility that ML1 may have been a Voyager-like meteor, artificially made by another civilization. What we did is compare 55 elements from the periodic table in coal ash to those special spherules we found, and it's clearly very different." Loeb said his work follows the scientific method, collecting materials, analyzing them, and following the evidence. Quote, "It's not based on opinion. And of course, if you're not part of the scientific process and you are jealous of the attention that it gets, then you can raise a lot of criticism." So the criticism continues. The interesting thing, though, is that there are more and more articles being published now that show the impact of his theories and the scientific validity of them. Loeb is seen by the scientific community at large as eccentric and as an original thinker. Geniuses have often been perceived that way. Even so, geniuses carry on. Just like Snoopy, Loeb will be undeterred. He's going to continue his quest not only to think outside of the box, but to do away with the box altogether. So, are UFOs real? Maybe we'll find out.
To seek out new life and new civilizations. To boldly go where no man has gone before.